Hello, friends. Something amazing has happened. A productive argument about an online video game. I recently found myself in a dispute of sorts with a familiar face in the Planetside 2 scene. And it, to me, illustrates exactly what makes this community and this game still so great in its second decade. To me, it proves that actually, Planetside is people. The person who I got into the argument with was Lex, the milsim prodigy himself. For those of you who don't know Lex, he's sort of like the bad Santa of Planetside 2. An incredibly skilled player with an incredibly sharp tongue. Now, the details of our dispute are sort of mundane. It was an argument about class balance. But the takeaways are perhaps more material. At the end of it, Lex simply said, "You're not good enough at the game to understand. You need to get better at positioning." Now, I went away and thought about this for a little while. A little butthurt, I'll be honest. But after reflecting on it, I realized that actually he had a point. That maybe there was something about the experience of Planetside that I was overlooking by allowing myself to just be an average player, not really trying to get better. So, when I streamed Planetside at night after that, I started practicing my positioning. I started slowing things down, trying to be more aware and a little bit less YOLO, throwing myself all over the map, which is pretty much how I've always played. And I saw some incremental gains. So, cool. That's actually really fun and encouraging. But the really cool thing that happened, and the reason that I sat down to make this video today is because Lex just committed an act of love. Lex just took his critique and took his tough love to the next level. He grabbed one of my stream videos and took the time to flip on his webcam and for an entire hour step through his thought process, his critique of my play, and what I can do to get better. Some of you may see this as an act of smug superiority, but to me, for someone like him who so values ability and who's so good and a better player than I am, let's be honest, I see this as like I mentioned, just an act of love. I've considered Lex to be my friend for the last, ever since we got on the podcast together a couple years ago. We had a great conversation about the needs of skilled players in Planetside, the skill culture, and perhaps the lack of it in places. And ever since, I have found his perspective to be so valuable. And he has the rare trait of being disagreeable enough to say the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And I really value that in a friend. This is a revelation I might never have had without Lex, without my friends, without the people of Planetside. I want to play for you a short snippet of this video that Lex recorded for me. Have a listen, and you can see what I'm talking about.
Because I'm tired of like saying it's positioning and then it really doesn't help you when I just say positioning because that's just a word that doesn't mean anything. So I do need to, as much as I hate this game, and I'm not having fun playing it and I have no motivation to do everything, I feel like I've pigeonholed myself into this situation where I have to go in here and try to help you. And it does two things. Number one, it shows you what I'm thinking and it maybe make you think about these things that you're not clearly not thinking about. And number two, it it gets over the point of you just thinking I'm a guy who says this, right? But I want you to know that I'm not, when I say that, I'm not just saying it to say it because it's a buzzword. It's because I think I'm one of the few people that understands how to do this and how to do it right.
You see what I'm talking about? This is a guy who could have just left the argument after dropping positioning and saying get good. He could have just cashed out, but no. No, he didn't just let me be the guy across the table from him who thought the thing. And he doesn't want me to think that of him either. So he invested deeper, he took the time, and made something that's going to help me. And I hope he makes these public so other people can benefit from them too. God knows I'm not the only Planetside player out there that needs help. It's a beautiful thing. Love you, Lex. Okay, but that's not all. That's not the only argument in my thesis of why Planetside is actually people. Couple things that I took away from an interview that I did last year with Tony Morton, better known to most of y'all as Cardo. He was the lead designer on the ill-fated Planetside Arena project, and we talked a lot about the nitty-gritty details about what went down, how and why, but one of the really cool human takeaways from that conversation, um, he pointed out to me two things. Number one, how amazing it was to work with the Planetside community. He'd worked on, I think, H1Z1 before Planetside, and whenever he was coordinating playtests, it was always like trying to, I don't know, like trying to wrangle wild beasts. It was almost impossible to get people to go anywhere, do anything, be on time, and be helpful. But when it came to organizing playtests for Planetside Arena, Planetside community just had its shit together. It was ready to go. It was helpful. It was supportive. It was special. And furthermore, talking to Cardo, reflecting about his experience in game dev, going from project to project, one of the things that he told me that I still think about today is that people are more important than projects. That the relationships that we cultivate, that the people who we spend time with, end up being of greater value to our lives than the outcomes of our undertakings. Now, this might seem like a sympathetic perspective from someone whose game failed to launch, but to me, I think it's the God's honest truth. And when I think about my relationship with Lex and so many other people in the Planetside community, to me, it rings forth and rings true. You know, I threw this out to my stream chat, I think a week ago or so, and I challenged one of my viewers by the name of Jace, to just kind of name what it was about Planetside that made it so difficult to let go of. But was it? How was Planetside special that made it not replaceable in some ways for this person? And what he said, I think, so described this phenomenon. Something along the lines of, and I'm heavily paraphrasing here, that the loose collection of small communities all orbiting around, supporting and fighting it out with each other makes Planetside special. You know, most first person shooters these days are lobby based. They're much more transactional in your interaction with people. Now, the benefit of this is you can get more fair games on average, but the downside of this is the person you're shooting is not going to be a name you're going to recognize. In Planetside, there's so much time and opportunity to develop rivalries and friendships and relationships that matter. And that makes it a more useful analog to the greater game of living life itself, which I think is really, really special. And I really cherish that about Planetside. It to me also calls to mind the idea of the third place. Now, if you've never heard of the third place, it's an idea that was put forth by a dude named, I think Ray Oldenburg is his name. He has a book called The Great Good Place talking about it. Essentially, it proposes that there are third places out there in the world that people spend time in. The first place is the home, the place where you make your living, the people who you support and support you cohabitate with. The second place is the workplace, the place where you go to make your living, do your job. Third place is a different kind of place altogether. It's a place where you're not obliged to be. It's a place where you want to spend time, a place focused on interaction, bon ami, conversation. It's a place where your status outside doesn't matter inside. It's a place where maybe everybody knows your name. And in 2023, I have to admit just how much I lean on online communities in gaming worlds like Planetside to be a third place for me. It's special, folks. We're going to lose it someday, but we owe it to ourselves to enjoy it while we can and not overlook the huge opportunities we have to learn by connecting with each other. Planetside is people, folks. And I'll see you out there on Araxis. Till then, please take good care of yourself, be good to each other, and I'll see you all very soon.